boy from Bikfaiya in Lebanon end up as a reputable producer in Los Angeles.
In Hollywood.
It took a few years, but essentially, look, I was born and raised in Lebanon. I was born in '82, and it was during the war. Grew up in Lebanon, went to school in Lebanon, went to university in Lebanon, and then I think the first experience with cinema that I remember is when my dad took us to a place called La Cité, which was like a cinema chain in Jounieh. And I watched a movie called Roger Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Who Framed Roger
Rabbit? Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I love that
legendary movie.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And I cannot forget this movie. And you know, it's like, obviously it's a film that I've seen so many times now. But and then the second film I saw is Batman with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And
90s throwback.
And I fell in love with that world, and I realized that I kept going back to the cinema. Like as a kid, I would go to like Circuit Planète or something like this, and I would go watch movies all the time, and I loved that. But funny enough, I did not think about a career in the cinema or in the film business. Like that world was just like, okay, you go to the movies, you watch that, and you know, like a dreamer. And then my grandfather had a printing press, and I would go every summer work at that printing press. So I learned all the printing process. I know how to print. I know layouts, fonts, serifs. Funny enough, all of this came back to me at some point in my life. But then when it came to choose a career, funny enough, my dad, who had an office that helps young people decide what they want to become and do, we decided that, okay, you know what, since I love like marketing and I love like advertising design and things like this, maybe I'll do advertising and marketing. Yeah. And I studied advertising and marketing at the NDU. And then after that, a friend of mine who was producing a show called Top Gear for NBC. I was sitting at the pool with him in Bikfaiya, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, look, I'm taking those summer jobs at my grandfather's printing press, but I was like 17 probably, or 16, 17 at the time. And I said, I want to do something else. He's like, we're starting this show at NBC, and it's a car show. And I loved cars, and I loved design and all of this. So I started working with him on that show. And I fell in love with the whole process. I felt like it's just incredible. You know, you have these cameras, you go to these locations, you test drive these cars.
The creative input in
it's
general
just,
is fascinating.
It's insane, right?
Yeah.
And there's a rebellious feeling in it a little bit. And then I decided, and I went and I told my dad, I wanna do something in the cinema. Like I wanna do something in this world. So I finished my advertising and marketing, and then I went into adding credits, which gave me another degree of radio, TV, and film.
How was your dad's reaction at that time when you told him you want to get into that world?
Nothing. Like my dad is one of the coolest. You know, he's one of the coolest motherfuckers on this world.
Nice.
He always said to us two things, which I will never forget. Do what you love. Do it the best. Don't ever be afraid of giving credit to somebody else, because if it's theirs, they'll take it anyway. And it's an amazing thing. And so he didn't care. He's like, okay, sure. And my dad is very into education. So when you go to him and say, look, I want to get more education, that's not going to be a no. Just go.
It's not going to prohibit you.
Education in any field.
Yeah, and I remember like, you know, I'm into watches, and then I went and I studied like watchmaking, and he was so excited. That's like recent. And he was like, oh my God, you're going to class. Like he loves that when you know, so he was supported. So I did radio, TV, and film. So I had 2 degrees. And then my brother that year, who went to do an American Board of Medicine in the States, was a little bit of an impact for our family. Like when somebody immigrates, it's just difficult. So then I said to my dad, let me do a master's in production at the Alba, just a year before I go to the States. Because I want to, like that was my career path now. I'm just going to go become a film producer. And I love that career, and I love that path. So I started the program at Alba, a master's degree in film production, and it was a French program. So we had French. It was like between France and Lebanon and all of this. It was really good. And then the 2006 war happened. We had to shrink the whole program into like a small. Anyway, we finished the thesis, all of that stuff, and then at the meantime, I was applying to film schools. I applied to AFI, which is the American Film Institute, to USC. I wanted the AFI because AFI had a very learn by doing style, and the others are a little bit more theoretical. USC, UCLA, Chapman. UCLA didn't take me, USC didn't take me, Chapman took me, AFI took me, which what I wanted. So I said yes. Funny enough, I did not get the FedEx package. I will never forget that because they said yes to me and I never got the FedEx package of acceptance.
Yeah.
And
So you
then
never
they
knew you were accepted.
No, because again, to Lebanon, you don't get shipping. There's no,
It arrives
there's no
halfway,
logistics.
it arrives halfway through the semester. You're like, oh, you
Yeah,
got
this
and-
day and age, you just get an email, man.
And these guys are like, we sent you that package, you didn't sign it. I'm like, which package? Like, I'm in, but which package? And then they resent me another one, and then they knew I was coming. And then the war started in 2006. And I remember it was very difficult because I left with no bag. I'm leaving this country. I'm like immigrating. No bag. I told my parents goodbye on the road in Bikfaiya, in the middle of the road.
Was that
it
the
was
first
very
time-
hard.
Was that the first time you ever left Lebanon and you like traveled? Or,
No,
yeah.
it wasn't the first time I traveled, but it was the first time I'm immigrating. I'm like, this is not gonna be my place, my home for a long time.
Yeah.
And I took a taxi through Syria to Jordan, flew from Jordan to Dubai, spent 3-4 days in Dubai, went to Holland, spent 2 days there, went to Detroit, and then from Detroit I went to LA.
So
And
you took the short route.
I
to
took the
LA.
short route.
Yes, great.
I wanted to make sure every country is and then I got there, and it was the first time I go to the States. I've never gone to the States before, and the first thing, and I remember that the States felt so old. Like when you look at the infrastructure in the United States, you're like, this is very old, because you're like, wait, in Lebanon we have poles with like cables on top of them. In the US it's still the same thing.
Yeah, they do.
Right? But then you learn through time that in the States, if something is not broken, they don't fix it. And then when they fix it, they advance it in leapfrogs, we'll get to that, but it's fantastic. And then I went into the school. I obviously had a hard time finding a place, all that stuff, but we got through it. And then I started attending the AFI, which was a phenomenal experience. A phenomenal experience because on a human level, every individual in the United States is valued at what they're trying to do. They're not valued by preconceived notions of where you're coming from, what's your religion, who's your family, where you live, what's your money, none of that. There's no variables that determine your sort of like respect except what you're putting out, essentially.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was incredible because unfortunately, I grew up a little bit bullied in Lebanon. One, because I had a health issue, which I have celiac, I have a celiac since I was 6, so I had to take like Tupperwares when I go to school. A lot of bullying. Okay, you're not the kid who's eating a sandwich, you're the kid. It's like there's a lot of that. And then I wanted to do something, which is the entertainment industry. At a time, there's no Netflix, there's no YouTube, there's none of that stuff.
A bit unconventional.
It's very I remember like my dad's friends were like, you're spending all this money to send your kid to the States to carry a camera. Like that's the joke.
Typical Lebanese mentality.
هلا عقلية هون.
هلا عقلية.
They mock things they don't understand.
Yeah.
It's incredible because it's one thing to disagree with somebody on their path or whatever, and that's okay. It's another thing to bash it.
Yeah.
And in the States, you don't find that. And I thought this was heaven. So I loved it. I went through the AFI. My mentors were great. In a crazy turn of events, my main mentor is a guy called Neil Canton who produced Roger Rabbit.
Oh.
His brother produced Batman. And funny enough, when I wrote my statement of purpose to go to the AFI, I did mention Roger Rabbit and Batman, and he was the one who read them and did the interview with
It's
me.
like, I like you because
So
you
it's
like me.
Yeah, it's
Like the stars aligned.
It was like, holy shit, okay.
Yeah.
Like this guy, he's like, okay. And he's now one of my very good friends, and his brother Mark became my mentor throughout my whole life. He introduced me into the film industry. He gave me my chances. And his daughter, Neil's daughter, who's my professor at the AFI, is now like a lead executive at Paramount, and she and I are making 3 films together. And so it's incredible, like how you sort of like get in and proliferate into that. I met a guy at the AFI. His name is Scott Silver. He became my business partner. He's still my business partner. We founded the company together. The thing is that I graduated in 2008. 2008, there was a massive financial meltdown. Yeah, in the United States. Okay, I would call my friends here in Lebanon, and they were doing very well financially.
Lebanon was one of the least affected places.
I know, and I'm like, we're fucked. I'm like, we're fucked. How is this the American dream? There's no American dream. That's a hoax.
Riyad Salemi, he had shit under control.
And I'm like, how are we fucked? This is the country that went to the moon, and you guys are doing so well. I started thinking of really going back to Lebanon and the Middle East to do those things. Smartly, my dad was like, no.
Fuck
you
that.
have
Thank God
to
for
get
that.
experience in the United States. You'll always go back. He supported me financially. I mean, honestly, for like a year and a half after university, I couldn't find a job. I was interning constantly. I interned for Scott Rudin. I became his assistant. Then I got paid a little bit. And then I went on a movie Mark brought me, which is Immortals. And I was like making like $7,000 a week. But then, it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
And then you have to like another year where you're not making money. So
You gotta
it was
save
just-
up all that money.
Yeah, and well, you don't really. That's the problem.
That's LA.
Because you think it's
That
gonna be
lifestyle
like
is so
That's the
fast-paced.
Lebanese in you. Like,
Yeah,
I have
I-
5, 6, I'm going to spend.
Exactly.
And also
I-
that industry that he's in as
Yeah.
well.
And you just think like that's gonna last forever, right? So, yes, I did not, but assuming I did for it,
Let's just say you did.
like, correct. Then you start but this is how you start also learning how the business works. It's up and down. You make a film, you don't make a film, the film gets greenlit, you don't get greenlit, so on and so forth. And the single best thing that happened to me is that I wasn't an American citizen until 3 years ago. Because if I was an American, thank you. Because that's funny. Because if I was an American citizen, what would I have done? I would have left. Because I was not an American citizen, I had to stay. I had to make it work. And I used to say to myself, the only way forward is downward. I'm just gonna go down.
Fuck
I'm
it,
gonna
yeah.
fucking do this.
Yeah.
And it was freaking insane. It was hell. Because you're not making money, you're in debt, you're trying to make things work. It's difficult. My business partner, he brought money from his family in Texas, but also, I mean, they can't, fund the whole operation. I mean, a movie costs millions of dollars. I mean, it's not sustainable. And then we made the first film for $125,000. Made okay with it. We made another one for $600,000. Made okay with it. During this whole recession in the US, and then the US started working out. And then you're like, okay, holy shit.
Things are going
Actually,
back
this
to normal.
country
I'm seeing it.
It's a behemoth.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's a crazy place. And then Netflix started becoming digital. And then YouTube started. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh,
Look at all the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's
Everything was
insane.
clicking.
You
everything
cannot
was clicking.
complain.
Yeah.
And then we started building the company. We did a film. So then my business partner came up with this idea called which became The Pyramid, which is a film we did. And I said to him, you know what, Scott, I'm not doing movies independently. I want to make a film with the studio. And by that time, I spent around 5-6 years in the studio world. So I know a lot of executives. I know the studios. I could just call them, pitch them the ideas. And then Fox said, we'll make the film. And then we made the film with Fox. It went on, made a lot of money, so on and so forth. And then, about 5 years ago, a crazy thing happened, which is that, so by that time, I mean, right now, I've been 14 years in the States, but 15 years. About 5 years ago, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Jean de Meron, the guy we were talking about, his dad is an architect. He's also in the film industry. He has always introduced me to people. They come from Switzerland, they come from Europe. And he's like, look, let's go have dinner, you and I, at this place called Isabelle. I just want to talk to you about some stuff. And we were talking about things. And then he's like, do you mind if this guy, Toby, comes and joins us? He's from Switzerland, he's a director. He's created this technology that does like interactive films. Maybe, you love technology. He's always been like a tech nerd, design nerd, and movies. And he's like, I said, yeah, of course, bring him in. So this guy, Toby, comes in, first of all, I love his looks. He's like a cool dude, bald hair, big beard, like very chill. Like you can tell somebody. So he's sitting with us, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Look, I live in Switzerland. I'm a commercial director. I'm playing with this technology. It's called Control Movie." And I said, "Okay, that's cool. What does it do?" And he said to me, he said it's like a choose your own adventure system. I said, "Can I see it?" And he's like, "Yeah, look, I have my laptop. I can show you the script." So he shows me a script, and it's like all like flow charted. You know, I mean, the script is a page by page. This is like multiple pages, and all this. I'm like, "Holy shit, this is insane." And I instantly was starting to think like this could be a paradigm shift in the whole entertainment industry. I mean, I know the film business. I know what they're suffering from. I know the struggle we're having in the entertainment. And I'm like, "Okay, what are you doing with this?" It's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Okay, let's meet up tomorrow." And I'm like, "How long are you staying here?" He's like, "I'm staying here for 9 days." I said, "Okay, let's meet up tomorrow morning for breakfast." We left. I get into my car, and I sat down for like 5-6 minutes. I'm like, I saw something at that time that it will change the entertainment industry. I went home. My wife, Caroline, is at home. She's like, "How's your dinner?" I said, "Babe, I think I saw something that will be it's a paradigm shift. It's like the invention of sound in cinema." And she's like, "Oh my God, you're like, give me this pitch now. You're such
Here
a
we go
producer.
again.
You're such a producer." Yeah.
The opportunist.
I'm like, "Babe, no, you don't understand.
This was real.
Let me explain it to you." And I'm like pitching her something that I have not really like still grasped on, but I get where this is going.
You see the vision.
Correct.
Yeah.
And one of my life sort of idols, and I love his philosophy so much, regardless of the products he's made, is a guy called Steve Jobs. You guys might have heard of him.
What does he do?
Yeah. Steve was this little guy.
Yeah.
So Steve Jobs had this philosophy, which I love, and he used to say, "Stay young, stay foolish." And when it happens to you, it's incredible. I was so foolish in that moment because I had no idea how many fucking interactive systems are out there. Who's doing that? I just like thought this is insane,
It's a cool
right?
idea,
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
cool idea. And I was like a little kid. And she's like, and Caroline's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm going to meet with this guy tomorrow. He's a cool guy. He seems very sharp." I met with him on breakfast. And I said, "Here's what," first of all, I called Scott. I said, "Cancel all the meetings we have for 9 days. We're meeting with this guy every day." And he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Listen, are you willing to give half of our company to this guy so we can take half of his company?" And he goes like, what the fuck is this?" I'm like, "Are you willing to do that? Just trust me." And he goes like, "Look," he knows like I'm always like crazy ideas, and he's like, "Do whatever the fuck you want, but don't fuck us." I'm like, "We're not gonna get fucked more than we can get fucked. Like it's fine. We can just always go back and be producers. Like I don't give a shit, right?" And because producing is all about like who you are. Like you read the script, you put it together. Like you don't really need a company in a sense, but if you have a company, you have a structure, you have all of that. So he's like, "Okay, whatever." So I go to the breakfast with Toby, and I'm like, "What are you doing with this?" And he's like, "Look, I don't know." I'm like, "Listen, we're gonna build a company out of this. This is what we're gonna do. This is who I know. These are the people we should talk to. And we should develop the technology into doing these things, into having that software, blah, blah, blah." And he apparently, and I knew that later on, was actually coming to the States from Switzerland, trying to find somebody to team up with, because it's difficult. You know, he's in Switzerland. I mean, it's just a difficult business. And we sort of like, we also philosophically meshed on like the way we think, the way, you know, we love movies and all of that stuff. And he said, "Okay, let's do it." So he went back, he spoke to his partner in Switzerland, and he said, "I met this guy, whatever. Since I don't have money to buy his company, and he doesn't have money to like sort of pay me in a sense for my service, we decided I'll give him half of my company, he gives me half of his company. Just as a sort of like a placeholder relationship thing." And then he's like, "How do you want to do this?" And I sort of designed a master plan, which is essentially like build one company, merge those production and technology company under one roof, make one big company that is tech production oriented, and go out with this technology and then, you know, pitch it and all of that. And we spent the past 4 years now essentially pitching the technology and all of that. We got in, all the studios to subscribe to it. Some studios that became our partners, they invested in the company. We have 8 films in that format. Essentially what this does is a choose your own adventure technology, meaning that you go to a movie theater, you have your phone with you, you connect to the what we call the IMB, which is the cinema system.
Is it like an app that you
It's
connect
like, so
to?
you have an app on your phone,
Yeah.
and you're watching the movie, and then you see sort of subtitles look like choices coming
Giving
up
you
on
choices,
screen every
yeah.
once in a while, and then you see them on your phone. You make a choice, it changes the story. Majority democratically
Okay.
changes the story. Obviously, later on you can do it at home. You can do it with your friends. I can be in LA, you guys in Beirut. We can do it together.
So it's like customizing your own movie
Absolutely.
to a certain extent. Yeah.
It's basically that. And what it does is it opens up the opportunity of the repeat business. So now you will watch a film multiple times. You'll watch different endings, different iterations, different storylines. And then obviously we build software around it. We build all of that. We're deploying it. We have a lot of filmmakers part of it. The biggest one is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I saw Amblin.
Alex Aja is one of them,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So it's just been fascinating.
The whole journey has been
The whole
amazing.
journey has been fascinating.
But how do you think right now, for instance, with coronavirus, and obviously you know how the cinema industry from a global sense has been affected with the lockdown, how do you think that will affect what you guys are doing? Do you think that will push it and become more prominent, or do you think that might hinder it a bit?
So here's the thing. I'm a massive ambassador and proponent for the theatrical experience. I
Yeah.
think that when a movie comes out in a movie theater on a global scale, it's the only event that humanity on a weekly basis are connected
Yeah,
in one time. Even a concert that happens in New York, it's not global.
yeah,
It can happen. You can have the biggest 300 million attendees concert in Beijing.
Yeah.
It's not global.
because everybody would be watching the same thing at the same time.
Correct.
At the same time.
Like when you look at
In
like
Beijing.
Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
The world was
I
watching.
mean,
Yeah.
it's insane.
yeah.
It's fascinating what's going on, and I think that. So I love the cinema experience. I love going into a dark place, blah blah blah. But at the same time, I also acknowledge that the way my grandfather got entertained in cinema, my father got entertained in cinema, I got entertained in cinema, my kids or their kids will get entertained in cinema doesn't work.
It's constant evolution.
It's insane. Like it will be insane if one design and one product works for such a long time and is so effective.
True.
So I think that cinema, here's my opinion. COVID helped usher us. We are in 2020, yet we're living in very industrial age analog system.
Yeah,
And I think COVID pushed us to become more digital, more connected digitally, less connected physically. Okay, we don't have to be in the same room to do the same thing, enjoy the same feeling. Yesterday, I was reading something about VR and augmented reality. And one thing that I loved was how VR companies, mainly led by Facebook and Oculus, they are doing things which you cannot do in real world, which means we're sitting at that table. I'm reaching out for the cup. Until I touch the cup, I will have no senses of what the cup feels like. In VR, they can create the sensor motion where the closer I get to the cup, the more I start feeling
oh
it.
wow.
And that shows you that it means my hand is here. I could start feeling there is an object. Now, in a virtual world, I might see it because I can look at it. But let's say you don't see it. You can just feel it because you're wearing those gloves and these sensors and all. When you grab it, then it's a different motion. So there's a heightened...
Your sensations are heightened.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you cannot deny that that is also very appealing and that is very cool and that the world can go into that place.
It's like a
We're
drug
sitting
in a
here,
weird way.
okay? We're sitting here. You're a music composer. One of the most difficult things is to mix the music in a sense where everybody's enjoying it in a way that it should be enjoyed.
Of course.
When you're talking and he's talking, there's a spatial difference into how I'm receiving it. We don't, in the real world, we're just doing it. But in the virtual, digital, post-COVID
Post-COVID,
world,
yeah.
I think it's fascinating where the world is going. And I think it's incredible. So this is why when COVID happened, we shifted our company's sort of like master plan from very theatrical, very traditional, like theatrical, home and personal, right? You start in a theater, you watch at home with your friends, and you watch on your iPhone, on your tablet, iPhone, whatever. Now we're like, no, you know what? Actually, digital is first. You want to have this theatrically, sure, you can have it. It's there. We build the hardware. And then you can do it personally. We shifted the technology from being centralized to decentralized in a sense where you can be on an iPhone, I can be on an Android phone, he can be on a PlayStation, Lebanon, New York, Finland, whatever, we can play together. So again, going with the idea that things are communal, but doesn't have to be physically communal, like we don't have to touch each other, communal. And I think that's okay too, in my opinion. I'm still a little bit old school when it comes to that. I still, again, think the theatrical is amazing. There's nothing like going to a movie theater. Like, when I look at Tenet, which I have not seen yet, and I'm dying to see, I mean, don't tell me you're going to be able to experience Tenet on your iPhone.
We discussed this last time with Blade Runner 2049. Like
Come on.
That needs to be experienced in the
It
cinema.
has to have a big screen, that texture. There is something so... Look, it's amazing how... I don't want to watch a YouTube video on an IMAX screen. I have no interest.
There are certain things for certain places. Basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that we live in a world where there's so many screens, there's so much access to, if you want like entertainment over screens, that it's okay. You don't have to, not one media has to cancel the other. It's okay. You could, I mean, look, in LA, in Burbank, for example, we have 29 screens of theaters. In my opinion, they should become 10. Sure. Yeah. You don't have to have 29.
Oversaturated.
Correct. That's okay though. Yeah. Okay. You still can go pay $25, see that experience if you want. The movie will stay there for 6 months. It's okay. You want to watch it at home? Look, the PVOD model, which is the digital release of a theatrical film on digital, did not work. So far, it has not worked in Hollywood. If I'm a subscriber to Netflix, I will not pay Netflix another $20, $30 to watch a film.
One movie,
specifically because it's released now, and then I will not do that. People will not do that. And then I think there's another thing that's happening. So back in the day, there was television broadcasted through antennas.
Yeah, through
antennas.
Yeah.
And then it moved to cable.
Cable, yeah.
And then now it's moving through internet. Yeah. In my opinion, in the future, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, the usual suspects, whatever, they will become nothing more than a TV network that will provide you all those 500 channels you can have on a TV box, but digitally over the internet.
It's interesting. I got into a conversation with my dad about that exact same thing. And it's fascinating because he's still old school when it comes to cable. And every time it comes to London, it's like, why don't you use the cable? I'm telling him that the concept of cable is non-existent.
It's not going to work anymore.
Non-existent.
No.
It's archaic,
It's archaic, it's slow, it's delayed. But that's okay. It did its job for 30, 40 years. So I think that the future is that. But at the same time, I don't think... Look, now there's a migration from binge watching to weekly scheduling.
Yeah, I agree.
Because here's the thing. A show that's 8 hours, Stranger Things. I don't have 8 hours to commit to this show. I'm sorry.
Yes, neither do I.
Yeah, I want to watch it. I want to watch it. I don't have 8 hours.
People only binge watch when they have nothing to do. Like when they have so much free time,
Exactly.
that's when binge watch happens.
Basically describing me.
Yeah, so you're frustrated. This is why I think the Apple model now is working, where every week they have Apple model. That's the old school model. Every week you have a new show.
Release something new.
First of all, it extends your membership and subscription because now you have to have that subscription over 2-3 months to keep that show on. And then second of all, your allocation of time, going back to time, which is the most important thing. And I think that time in the entertainment is similar to thirst with Coca-Cola, meaning that when you're thirsty, Coca-Cola is competing against water and orange juice as well. Because you're thirsty and whatever you're going to drink is that next product. When I have an hour to kill, am I going to watch Netflix? Am I going to watch Quibi? Am I going to watch YouTube? Am I going to review? It's very limited. So if I watch an hour of Stranger Things and I'm frustrated because now I have 7 hours but I don't have that time, that's not a good business model. in my opinion.
But the consumer has been, from what I know, and even I felt it, I felt like we've benefited from, I enjoy having all the content right there and the whole season in front of me. And then I subscribe to Apple, and I find myself being slightly annoyed at having to go back to the old model of waiting every week, even though I understand the business perspective from it.
But like, you still do it. You will wait.
Because I'm desperate.
You will.
No, that's a very good, I mean, yes, but at the same time, I think that how many times and how many shows are you gonna really sit 7 or 8 hours to watch them?
There's a
altogether?
select few.
It will, okay, so you mentioned Stranger Things. This is like
the
one of
ultimate,
the highlights
sure.
of Netflix, the series
Sure.
that is carrying them. So I
Yeah.
agree with you in that sense.
You won't
Yeah.
sit down and binge watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
No,
for instance.
I find myself actually with a lot of the shows that you can binge, you know, now in this short age kind of content,
Yeah.
and very
Short
fast,
attention span,
short
yeah.
attention
Yeah.
span is essentially, I'll watch something, I'll watch 20 minutes, and if it's not one of the biggest shows that everyone is watching and that has my attention span, I move on to something
Okay,
else.
that's okay. Hold on a second. That thought is amazingly destructive. I'm Netflix. I just spend $20 million on those 8 hours. You watch 20 minutes. That's a disaster of a business model.
Yeah, أكيد.
Do you see what I'm saying?
أكيد.
But then if I create a cooler, a water cooler conversation, meaning that I release one episode on Monday, you watch 20 minutes of it, that's fine. On Friday. Monday shows up, you're going to work or you're talking to your friends have watched the whole show. You're gonna feel left behind. You're gonna give it a second chance the next week.
But going back to you think about Netflix's business model, their whole business model is basically in terms of money, it's constructed on the amount of subscribers that they have, the amount of people that actually go pay that monthly, like let's say $9
Yeah,
a month.
yeah.
And how do they lure you in? They don't lure you in through that 20-minute show that you're gonna get
No.
bored. They lure you in through these big shows, the Stranger Things, stuff like that.
Correct.
And then you go,
House
you get
of
hooked
Cards.
100%. And those shows take a lot of time to finish as well.
Of course.
So they're gonna lure you in through these big names, and then people are just gonna. Many people are also careless and reckless. So even if they want to deactivate Netflix, the
They'll
whole
keep
process of exactly. So I think they base their business model maybe more off that rather than putting an average show. They'll just put an average show there for more diversity.
Correct. But all I'm saying is that it's the beauty of all of that discussion is that everyone feels they have a tailor-made experience. You're not forced to do it. You don't want that show, don't watch
They
it.
give you the freedom.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's an
flexibility,
incredible thing that we're at a time and age where everyone has a tailor-made experience. You don't like the show, sure, I like it. But I think that cinema is the only event that
You're
forces
forced to.
people
I
to
agree.
have one conversation going on about this thing. It's so hard, and I'm sure it happened to all of you guys, where I've watched all of Stranger Things, you haven't. We can't have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'll admit that I'm the only probably person in the world right now who has not seen the entirety, if not very little, of
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
I knew it.
Okay.
I still haven't watched
You
the
didn't
final
miss out on the last season. Yeah.
So I cannot have a conversation with anybody. I don't want to have a conversation. Don't even ask me anything, or I'm not gonna close my ears, because I will watch it for sure. And I'm one of those people who will watch it now on a plane, like, because it's a great time for me going back to the States with 12 hours of flight. I'll watch it.
Fair.
My wife watched it, where I could have joined her. I did not, because for me it was like that has been a little bit. But at the same time, it's a thing that I need to watch. Like it's incredible how these things work in this day and age. But at the same time, I'm the guy who watches 3, 4, 5 films a week in a cinema. So it's a very interesting thing. I think that it's fascinating for the entertainment industry. It's fascinating for technology, where it's pushing the limit. We're very excited about what we're doing because we're letting the audience play with their
Interact,
characters,
exactly.
interact,
Creating a
tell
But
their
I
own
wanted to ask
stories.
how exact. So, because I know kind of in the States that reading up on studio history that the studios cannot produce their own movies and then kind of own the distributors. I think
Correct.
that, yeah. So how does it work exactly? Do you
Pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass. Okay. That's
So
how
here's
it
the
works.
thing. So here's the thing. When we, this is the story of my life. Essentially, that's the biggest battle of all times. That's your Game of Thrones battle, or whatever.
The dragons and the
Correct. When the dragon, there's a, I don't know, ice dragon and fire dragon.
Let's not get
Some
into it.
nerdy
Yeah,
shit.
let's not get into it. Again, I haven't seen them. But essentially what happens is exhibition, which means like Empire in Lebanon, AMC, whatever, Vox. They are the people who are, they're separate from the studios. They're separate from the producers. Studios are producers. They we became into that chicken or the egg situation, because when you go to exhibition and say, look, we need to deploy this technology which allows audiences to do what that experience is, they'll say, oh, what's your food chain? Like, what's the product coming up? And you're like, well, we're going to talk to the studios that are going to make content. When you go to the studios, they say, well, how many screens do you have? Because when a film costs 15, 20, 30 million dollars, the studio wants to know they have enough footprint that generates back that money, okay? So it's a chicken or the egg situation. Turns out, and I discovered that recently through that process, the only people that sit on top of that food chain are the filmmakers. Funny enough, if Steven Spielberg wants to make a film, the studio is not gonna say, oh, well, sorry, we can't, like when Quentin Tarantino wanted to release the 70 millimeter version of Hateful Eight, Warner Brothers deployed 300 70 millimeter projectors in the theaters. That's just what it is. So turns out that go talk and get the filmmakers on board. They will command the studios to do that, which in turn force exhibition to say you need to deploy this technology because that's how it's playing, and then you do it.
It's like, does it have to be like sent by a certain caliber of filmmaker?
Yes.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, sure.
Of course.
This is a Hussein Ali from
It's a harder sell.
It's a harder sell, right? Yeah.
I mean, what it does, it creates product
yeah.
and reason to do that, but it's a harder sell. Can Hussein Ali go on digital? Sure. The other thing that I use as a beating stick is that I kept telling the exhibition, which are the largest pain in the ass. So here, I'll tell you an analogy that I always say. You're a startup company who created an amazing new rubber compound that allows tires in cars to be more efficient, drive longer, less noisy, heavier grip on the road. All the qualities you can imagine that all the Michelin, Bridgestone, whatever, Continental of the world dream of. You go, you pitch it to Michelin. Michelin says, no, that's not a product that we're interested in. And you're like, wait a second, this compound create your tire that's gonna, and then you go back into that same thing. Like, it's better grip, it's better, less noise, cheaper, longer, sharp. No, we don't want to do this. It's a little bit of that in the film industry. The structural things have been put on in place for so long that everybody is so petrified of any change. And this is why technology in Silicon Valley has been disrupting it so much. Like, they're like plowing the field in Hollywood because Hollywood people are, first of all, they're artists mainly. Product takes a long time. This is not a product. The film and TV is not a product that you can churn out in 2-3 hours. I'm not talking about your typical YouTube. I'm talking about like proper filmmaking. Technology is so much faster than this. So this is why the influx of technology and change through technology in Hollywood has been massive, because by the time Hollywood starts steering the ship, it's a bit like the Titanic. These guys are in a speedboat. They're already gone there. So we use the beating stick of, well, you don't want to do this theatrically? Fine, we'll do it digital. And you will never have interactive repeat business, more popcorn and soda sold like you want. Because let's be honest, they make a lot of money on popcorn and soda.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Markups. Yeah. And how are you, because you're kind of this crazy Lebanese producer coming in who loves tech and has been involved in some big Hollywood productions. Are people a bit taken back by you and saying, or is it a sense of, you know what, I'm going to trust this crazy Arab guy and I like the way his direction is heading and I like the way of his
Especially
thinking.
when you first started as well, like in the earlier stages of your career.
Was there a pushback?
So here's the thing. It's an amazing question, actually. And I never really felt pushback in a sense, because I learned very early on. First of all, and I hate to say this, unfortunately, I really don't like to say it, but I'm just gonna say it because it will summarize a lot of that discussion. I hated our way of doing business here before I went to the States. I freaking hated it.
What? It's a lovely business model.
It's working
I
great
did
so
not
far.
I did not like how Lebanese conduct themselves doing business.
You don't like the corruption?
I don't like the corruption. I did not like not showing up on time. I did not like not paying on time. I did not like any of that stuff. So when I went to the States, I really hard worked on trying to be very much like them. But I think I managed not to lose the, call it the Lebanese way of like,
The identity of-
مسحب هالدقن in a sense, but not really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's get it going. And I think that there is something in the American culture which is phenomenal. When you have a dream and you have an idea, you will find people that will come with you on that journey.
Yeah.
The American dream.
Yeah.
They will believe in it. They will come with you. They'll do it. So there is a lot. I don't think that. Funny you asked me this question because I did go to my American partners sometimes and I said, "Am I the guy?" Sometimes when you have a very hard time making a deal, I doubt. Am I the guy who's screwing up the deal? Are
Am
they
I the
not
odd
making the
person?
deal
Yeah.
because I'm an
my-
Arab guy? I freaking said it, black man. I fucking said it.
Did that happen many times or just a few
No,
times?
no. Like the few times when
Yeah.
when it was atrociously hard
Oh, you're right.
in my career, I went to my elderly business partners. I have like a bunch of consultants and their partners, and I black and white asked them, "Am I the problem? Tell me to my face."
And this was coming from self-reflection, not
No.
because of anything they did
No,
to
no,
make
no.
you feel. Okay.
And the reaction, and because I'll step down. I'll take a side, let Scott or let Toby be CEO, run. I don't care. I'm here to make movies. I mean, again, it's not about like who's doing what.
Yeah, you see the potential behind
We need the
everything.
job done, yeah. And they were like, "Are you crazy?" Of course not. It's just a stupid freaking, But I've opened it up to. I've opened up to this, because don't underestimate stigmas in the world.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Look where we're living.
Unfortunately, you're not hiring this guy because he's Indian, or she's not hiring this woman because she's Finnish or whatever. And it's like, really, like, why? Like, when you get to the core of it, you're like, this is just wrong on all levels. But unfortunately, we are biased by stigmas and systems and so on and so forth. So I don't think it did that. And I always did something that I noticed a lot of Lebanese people that I've met shy away from. I never ever said I'm not Lebanese, or I denied any of this.
I've
And
seen that
I
firsthand
see
as
this
well.
happen a lot. It pisses me off.
Change your name to Shaya instead of Shadi.
Whatever. Like, I mean, I just think that at the same time, okay, look, here's the thing. Politically, regionally, geopolitically, the country is in trouble. Okay? Doesn't mean that the culture and the people are in trouble. I mean, that's just stupid. If you are gonna like
Shy away from
if you're gonna like make and build an image on a country or a people or a person because politically the US and let's say Lebanon are not at peace or whatever they're doing, that's just, I think it's short-sighted. I don't want to actually do business with you.
You're not.
You are not a person who are actually.
Who's confident, basically.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
So I'm really sorry.
It was logical.
Yeah. If all of a sudden I'm like, oh, because Lebanon and Britain are at war,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do business with a British person. I think that's, you know what? Yeah, okay, that's my loss.
No,
So
fair
it's
enough.
just so stupid. And I think that talented people are talented people,
Regardless of exactly.
of color, culture, sex, whatever.
In fact, culture can actually be
Enhance,
beneficial.
of
Exactly.
course.
Because you are used to living in this absolute. You grew up in wartime Lebanon.
Yeah.
So I think that growing up with that chaos helped you maneuver the unpredictability of
Correct.
Hollywood.
But interacting with other cultures as well allows you to see things from different
perspectives, of
which is
course,
amazing.
of course.
And as well, so Shadi, you've been working in America and living there for many years. You've basically gained insight to how the entertainment industry works over there. And I'm just interested to know, have you ever tried, not necessarily to come back to Lebanon in terms of working here, but like trying to help improve the entertainment
And
sector?
bridge the gap type
Yeah,
of thing.
bridge the
Yeah,
gap.
yeah.
So look, it's very interesting because when I started, the first company I started is called Silvatar Media, which was Silver, the last name of Scott, and Mattar, which is my last name. The initial DNA of Silvatar was to create a bridge of entertainment between the Middle East and the United States. And it's funny because I have a business plan. When you look at it, you're like, it was like 10 years ago, and you're like, wait, this is what's happening right now, essentially. It was like 10 years ahead of its time. And And I've tried a lot of times.
When did you do Silvatar? Sorry to interrupt you. When did you do Silvatar? When was it created?
2008.
Okay, all right.
So when we graduated, we were still at the AFI and we finished, and then we started the company, and then Silvatar became part of KINO Industries, which is the company I have now, which is the tech and entertainment company. I tried and I continued trying because it means a lot to me to bridge the gap between call it bridge or collide Hollywood and Middle East entertainment. Part of it is I would come here and I would meet filmmakers. One of the filmmakers I met, I think he was on your podcast, his name is Chady Eli. He
Never heard of him.
Yeah, good. So this is a kid who was a sort of taught like filmmaker and all of that. Anyways, he wrote a script that, funny enough, I'm producing right now. My wife is directing it, and it's a film that takes place in Lebanon. But I went just in between brackets. In 2009, I made a film. One of the films I made went to the Dubai Film Festival. And I was in Dubai and I was doing a conference for the film, and they asked me, what would it take for Arab filmmakers to make it into Hollywood? And I said, when they make Iron Man. And I don't mean making Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. I mean making and telling stories that are not pertaining to religion, politics, and war. Because I'm sick and tired of all of that.
100%, yep.
And that's an image that we have so many stories. We have so many cool stories. There's so many young people. Why are you? I understand we're all affected, and I understand we're all scarred. What do you like? Punched in the guts traumatized from it. Yeah. But let's move away from that.
There's more to us, yeah.
There's more to these people.
There's
There's more to this culture. Not only that, there's a fascination in the West with the Oriental culture. The fascination is not about the war and the politics. That you can read that on CNN. The fascination is about the culture itself, the food,
exactly,
the clothing, the partying in Lebanon, whatever. And I would come to Lebanon and I joke and I say, if somebody writes me a script that starts off at Sky Bar, a girl meets a guy at Sky Bar and they hook up and goes from there, I'm producing that film. It's to dumb down the idea of take something that's so basic, let's go tell that story. So Tony came up with this incredible idea of these kids that come up with a crazy thing to make. I can't talk too much about it because then I'll go home and I'll get slaughtered by my wife. But it's a coming of age, self-discovery, self-realization, bunch of guys coming together. It's phenomenal. His writing was impeccable. And I took him under my wing as I became his godfather. I even brought him to the States. He was acting in few films. He's one of my writing go-to guys. Him and my wife became writing partners. They wrote another show that hopefully Netflix will take. I don't know. But they're very creative, and he's very creative, and he pushes the boundaries. And the problem is there's maybe him and him in this area right now. I have not discovered somebody else.
Yeah, we spoke with him about, within the previous episode with Tony, how one of the biggest problems in the Lebanese industry and maybe in Middle East in general is the lack of writers.
Correct. So here's the thing. So to build an industry like the entertainment industry, you need creators. The creators will be the driving force because the creators will attract the audience to go watch that creation, right? The whole physical production, that's just baby work. That's stupid. I mean, how to shoot them, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. The main thing is creativity. The other problem that we culturally have is everybody wants to be something else. Meaning, you're a writer, he wants to be a director. You're a first AC, you want to be a DP. Ya habibi, you're a first AC, become the best first AC in the world. You're a writer, become the best writer. You can win an Oscar for writing. You don't have to become a director or a producer to win an Oscar. I'm just going to the extreme. Yeah. Everybody is
so
the
narrow.
grass is greener
narrow,
on the other side كتير يعني, to a point where it's like ridiculous. It's a good green, or you have a good green on your side. For example, I went to producing. I started producing. I have no aspirations whatsoever, neither to write, nor direct, nor do anything. I just want to be a producer. And I want to be in the background. I don't want people to know me. I just want to do films that I love, that I watch. I want to push these people. I want to work with talented people. This is the problem we have culturally. We don't want to be masters at one thing that we can become masters at. there's an amazing thing at becoming the best cinematographer,
Of your
the
craft.
best gaffer, the best writer, the best editor. Everyone has, because we are, I think, a culture driven by
Status.
correct, by status.
And spotlight as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're an editor. You're not a star. I'm sorry, but that's okay. I mean, not everything in life is about being a
You
star.
still play a massive role in creating.
Correct.
Yeah.
اكيد شو عيب
I'm a
يعني.
exactly. I'm a producer. I'm not a star. Even like Harvey Weinstein, who was the best maybe producer. Forget about the predatory, rapey shit. He's crazy done. I'm talking about career-wise and work. He's phenomenal. He's not a star. The stars were the directors and the actors of his films. So, and and again, I laugh because that's okay. That's cool, actually. It's very cool. I mean, there's nothing better to be a dark knight. You're like a big producer who's made so many things. Nobody knows you. That's amazing, in my opinion. I don't want to walk down the street with people like asking
Chasing you the whole
I
time.
really don't want that.
Celebrity kills your brain.
But again, that's not how, and I think we have to go through that to go back
Yeah.
to that.
It's
So-
the mindset, basically.
Yeah, so I tried and I keep trying to push the boundary and connect the two worlds. So again, this movie is one of these films we're doing. We're doing a TV show as well. And of course, you know, I have a lot of friends in entertainment, so I'm deploying the technology in the Middle East, all of that stuff. Unfortunately, right now, Lebanon is out of the Middle East development map. So when you talk to the big companies like Netflix, Amazon, they are discounting Lebanon. They're not going to do anything in Lebanon. We've had multiple discussions. Like this is black on white.
Where are
It's
they
not-
focusing on the most?
UAE, Saudi.
UAE, Egypt, Jordan, you know, all of that. And I think that's okay
Yeah.
for the time being. Lebanon is in a transitional tough spot period. Let's figure our shit out. to be
We're in a
honest with you.
shithole, basically.
Yeah, it's okay. It will pass. And then you know, the creativity will flow. Then the other thing that I think we suffer from massively is the lack of perspective on what I call like lack of scope. Lack of scope is when you don't realize that what you're doing, the scope of what you're doing is different from the scope of something else you could be doing. Meaning that it cannot be, and this is like real life situation, it cannot be where a movie in Lebanon, to shoot it in Lebanon, I'm talking physically, costs more than Los Angeles.
That can't be.
Because they're probably taking
It cannot be,
putting it in
but
their
yet it
pocket.
is.
No way.
It is. I'll show you budget. It's ridiculous. You have the first assistant director in Lebanon makes more money than the first assistant director that I hire in LA, who, no offense to the Lebanese guy or girl, has hundreds of movies of experience. Because we come from a culture of advertising, which is highly paid, and they're translating that into the film industry. And they don't work like that. Even in the US, the commercials cost more than the film, relatively, let's say per minute or per day. So to that extent, it's very difficult to actually create an industry because it requires a lesser cost. Because here's the thing, it's math. It's simple math. I mean, let's take out the artistic value in things. You need a certain budget to make a certain movie, to make a certain money back from the people that are buying those tickets or watching the film. You don't have enough market share, and people, there's 300,000 to 400,000 people that goes to the cinema in Lebanon out of the 4 million that we are. They will not generate enough box office money to warrant a film that actually costs more than 400,000 or 500,000. When your cost is so high compared to the rest of the world, a $400,000 movie is a piece of shit. Okay? But if you lower your cost, your $400,000 movie will become very valuable and very cool. So then you will elevate the quality at a cost that is reasonable, that is recoupable, that allows the investors to say, you know what, this was a great venture. Let's do another one.
You're
So
right.
there needs to be more kind of grassroots guerrilla filmmaking
Correct.
where you rely heavily on story rather
Correct.
than this over-budgeted
Not
Ramadan TV show type
No,
of
but
stuff.
it rely on the story, rely on, like for example, the film we're doing that Tony wrote and Caroline's directing is gonna be the first film in Lebanon ever where all its money is coming from Lebanon. It's unheard of.
I didn't know you could pay for a film in Lolar.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's true. There you go. So every film that's been produced in Lebanon, every commercial, its money is coming from the outside, which all of a sudden creates a culture of, oh, I get paid from the outside. I don't need your Lebanese pound. It's weak. It's shit. I get paid from Dubai. I have an account. And I'm telling these Lebanese people, like, how the hell on earth? Like, you know what I'm doing now, which is surreal, because I'm fighting something that has nothing to do with filmmaking to make this film. I'm telling people, you want to get paid fresh money? You need to show me for the last 3 years statements of you getting paid fresh money outside of Lebanon.
Everybody's all talk until you tell them to
had
do
me
that
at
action.
statements, yeah.
No, I'm
It was
serious.
all
Because
talk,
what the
man.
hell? What the fuck?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we can't make the film because it's like, you tell people you're going to get paid in Lebanese pound. They're like, oh, well, I don't get paid in Lebanese pound. I'm like, well, okay, you're Lebanese. You're living in Lebanon. This is the currency.
Yeah.
I understand.
But
but,
of
of course.
that's systemic rather
I know,
than...
I understand, but I'm just saying it's to that extent that look how much hurdles and how much headwind you have that are not pertaining to the creative process, that are not pertaining to the filmmaking process, that are not pertaining to distribution, exhibition, nothing pertaining to the industry itself that you are dealing with. And I think that the countries like the UAE, Jordan, Egypt, they've understood, they have a different thing. They have an industry. And I hope that it will not be too late for us Lebanese to, you will always have those films. You'll always have Nadine making a film. You'll always have Ziad Douairi making a film. That doesn't matter. And we will make our film and all of that. I'm not worried about any of these things, but I was hoping to become the start. That film becomes the start and the trigger
Something new.
of a chain of
New
reaction.
age, yeah.
People be like, oh, you know what? Actually, we can make a high quality film. This is a script. I'm telling you, like, this is a script that I've sent to high end studios and companies that are telling me, once you shoot it, we want to buy it. This is not like your typical Lebanese, film that's coming out in 3 theaters. This is a film
cheesy,
that,
yeah.
yeah, this is a global film. What they wrote is a story that it will probably be the first time ever Lebanese people are gonna feel they're gonna feel global.
That's 100%, and that's why I have a lot of respect for people like you and Tony, because look, being Lebanese right now and living in Lebanon, if anything, it's the biggest hindrance ever.
Correct.
The only thing, though, when it comes to media and producing television and shows, I think one of our biggest strengths that has been underutilized is our culture.
Correct.
We stick too much on, let's shoot a movie about, political instability, because it's very relevant to our region. But what I'm trying to tell people, and I tell them abroad, there's so much more going on under the surface. You can take kind of Western plots and Western storylines, but if you bring them here and you infuse Lebanese culture into them, it becomes a whole different beast.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
that's where we need to kind of explore more.
That's what I'm telling you. Tell me the story of that girl that met this guy at Star Wars.
Khalas, I'm
at
selling
Star
my soul.
Wars,
Yalla.
at Skybar.
Man, who has
In
who,
Star
who
Wars.
has more stories than the Lebanese people?
Yeah, it's
You know,
incredible.
Of any kind of story,
But
whether
it's
it's
incredible.
heartbreak of leaving your country, coming back to your country for heartbreak, people dying around
Societal pressure, being...
L-
there's
love
so
It's
much.
amazing.
But
I'm
there's
telling you,
so
it's
much, there's so
incredible.
much.
I
Yeah.
also feel, because going back to what you're saying about people having to get educated in terms of not just thinking, I want to be the actor, I want to be under the starlight. People having to look into cinematography, into
Yes.
writing. I think a very good way of educating people as well is through media. And I think the younger generation right now is really getting into alternative media in general. Things like podcasting, for instance, them being able to listen to a first-hand
course.
experience of a producer who's coming and saying, no, guys, you shouldn't just be doing this. You should be looking at different ends of the puzzle. And I think that the media right now, especially in Lebanon, especially since the revolution up till now, people have been waking up that let's forget what corporate
Look,
media is telling us and let us go into this new age.
Basically, listen to our podcast, is what we're trying to say.
Listen to the, I keep saying this, okay? In Lebanon, every TV station does the same thing like the other TV station.
Exactly.
Why doesn't, I'm just gonna name names, but I don't mean these people.
Yeah.
Why doesn't, for example, MTV does a spin-off of their channel or LBC or whatever, where it's a channel that is only talking about, let's say, food in Lebanon, going about the craftsman in Lebanon, a guy that makes soap, a guy that makes leather, so on. I'm just saying anything like when you look at, like, let's say Germany, France, UK, United States, there are specified channels that are catering to people. Again, I'm not saying go make a channel about, cattle. I mean, there are some topics that are a little
Be
bit
a good
global.
channel.
You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's amazing that all their preoccupation, ما هو أنت, if you keep putting your finger on the wound, it will not heal. And the wound will not heal, and then you keep putting your finger. It's a vicious circle. So at some point, you gotta take those people, hold them by the hands, and say, let's go show you this thing. I'm not talking about an episode or a program. I'm talking about a full channel dedicated to that. Because that will inspire people, be like, oh, I want to be a cook, actually. I want to take our food heritage and globalize it. One of my best friends is a guy called Mario Haddad. He has the cinemas on Pier and a lot of restaurants. His daily passion is creating food and cooking, okay? He's been killing himself to do a show, okay? I mean, forget about the COVID for a second. He was designing it and everything. I thought it was a genius, brilliant, crazy idea because this is not a country. We're not talking about like America where the food is like pasta, Americanized. I mean, no offense to my fellow Americans, and I love them, and I love the eating in the States, but it's not like Lebanon.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a rich food culture.
How are we not exporting that through media?
Yeah.
Why are we not on Chef's Table on Netflix?
Why are we not telling stories? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Go watch Chef's Table. It's all over the world. None of the episodes is from Lebanon. Why?
And there's not a single Lebanese person there. By the way, you know why?
I mean, because
go make ورق عريش بتنيك اختها. You will win.
exactly. يا خيي, the perfect hummus plate, the perfect Lebanese. How do you eat Lebanese in the morning?
Tabbouleh, all of them,
I'm
bro. You
just
can
talking
go
about
deeper and
stupid
deeper.
things.
And this is just
Deeper,
food.
deeper, yeah.
Yeah.
This is just food.
Yeah.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that we as a culture, we as group, we need to elevate ourselves.
And we're so uncreative as well. Like, there's
We
No,
need
no.
to man up to it.
We
need
are
to,
very creative. It's just the system is not in place for us to allow those creative
you
ideas to
are
become
wasting.
tangible.
Look, time is the most important, in my opinion, commodity in the world.
It's the one thing we have.
It's the one thing that every person that is born has, and nobody can take it away from them. Money comes and goes, creativity, whatever. We waste a lot of time in Lebanon. We don't
Oh.
waste time as in, like, when I say wasting time, it doesn't mean you're sitting
And doing
10 hours
nothing,
at the
yeah.
beach. That's for me is not a waste of time because that's a choice. You want to sit at the beach, it's great. You're feeling good about it. Waste of time is when you are spending time to achieve a task that is required a certain time. It requires me 5 minutes to fill up this cup. I'm spending 15 because there's no water in the tank. I need to go up, دور هيدا الترمبة, احكي له مع الناطور, whatever.
I think the government can relate to this. Yeah.
Of course. So that waste of time equates waste of mental energy, creates a vicious circle of tiredness,
Inefficiency.
inefficiency, laziness. All of a sudden, by the end of the day, what have you achieved?
Nothing.
Very little because you're
Nada.
exhausted. Because I don't blame people. You're exhausted. I got exhausted doing. I've been here now in Lebanon for 2 months. I'm exhausted doing things that are so primal in a
That
sense.
you shouldn't even be doing in the
that
first
you shouldn't
place.
be doing. يعني انه يا اخي بدنا نحضر شغله على الانترنت اوكي تفعلوا الكوتا تبع الانترنت so we can watch it and then be fast like we're done. This is so we can move on to the other thing. Anyway, so there's a lot of that going on, and this is why I'm saying that Lebanese people, we should as a group, we should as a country, as people, decide that, you know what, I'm actually gonna block that noise. I'm not gonna do that thing. I'm just gonna focus on this thing. I'm gonna do that thing that I like. I don't want to try to be somebody else. Everybody else is taken. Be yourself. Compete with yourself. Stop trying to be like somebody else. Like it's and again going back to the entertainment and technology, there's another big problem, which without getting into the whole political and financial stuff, because I'm not interested in any of these things, the fact that we created such a disastrous financial system stifled the investment in startups. And I lived that. When I first started my company and I was trying to get movies going, I naturally gonna come back to Lebanon, try to get investors from here and everything. It was so hard. It wasn't hard because people did not like me or like the project or like the company. It was hard because I'm competing with a bank. I'm a startup competing with a 12-15% return a year. I cannot provide you this. I'm sorry, I cannot give you that guarantee. So if and now, in retrospect, when I look at it, these investors made the bad choice, but at the time, I mean, they made the right choice because
It made sense at the
it
time.
made
Like,
sense. You have $1 million, you can put them in a company that eventually in 5, 6, 7 years could become 3, 4, 5 million, whatever. But what about every year giving you $120,000,
10 to 12%.
$130,000?
Exactly, yeah, it's a scheme.
So that idea and that concept and that philosophy made people, in my opinion, lazy, made people less ambitious, made people less investing in creative young men, creative young women, ideas. I mean, again, we have a service and taxi system in Lebanon. Service and taxi system in Dubai sold for $2.33 billion for Uber. I'm sure there's a young person in Lebanon who had an idea for an app to design around service and all of that, could have became something and sold it to Uber too. We did not give that individual that chance because we withhold the resources. It's all about resources allocation. Okay, at the end of the world, even in the United States, when a studio gives you $10 million to make that movie, it's because they have 10 or 15 million for the another. It's all allocation. We did not allocate any capital for those young people to try to do this. I guarantee you, I haven't spoken to anybody, but I'm sure somebody had great ideas.
And imagine
Many.
how hard.
Look how many Lebanese go abroad. But Anna, my question for you is, you are successful. You've created a success. If I can list your movies right now, many people would have heard of them. They've made a lot of money. You can easily turn your back and live this beautiful life in Los Angeles, and yet you still want to go head on and kind of, I don't know, help facilitate change in the region.
Here's the thing.
Why? Why do you keep going?
I'll tell you why.
Fuck this.
I'll tell you why, because there's nothing like Bikfaiya. No.
Okay. End it there.
It ends there. No, the reality is like, look, at the end of the day, okay, you cannot turn your back on who you are. That's just, you can hide it, you can masquerade it, you can put on a show. At some point, like, you are who you are. I love Lebanon. I love Lebanese people. I hate working with them in LA. I'll tell you why. And I think that, again, I think it's a virgin mine. This country is a mine. It has all these people. I talked to I mean, we were having a conversation together, the four of us. It's just fascinating. Everyone's coming from something. Everyone has an idea. And the funny thing, unlike the United States, it's accessible in a sense where there's always in Lebanon a 1 or 2 call away from someone you can reach out to and be like, hey, can we do this project together? That's one. 2, look, I love the United States. I'm an American citizen. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the United States. It's one of my favorite countries. It's my country. And I love my partners. I'm in love with them. Like, if I can marry my partners, my American partners, I'll marry them. Like, I love them. I love the American people. I love the culture. I love the country. As much as I love Lebanon. But I'm good in the US. I have a company. I have partners. I'm doing what I'm doing. If I can do something to this other place of mine, why not? I mean, I would love that too. There's something really cool about it. There's something, undeniably beautiful and different. And I don't know how to explain it, but I'm very emotional about it. I'm super emotional about Lebanon, and I'm super emotional about this place. The problem is the attitude, is the sadness of where are we going in terms of like attitude, in terms of like lookout, in terms of where the world is going. We need to be going to where the world is going. We're going against it. Why? Because we're dogmatized. We have an old antiquated belief system. We are so attached to things that we think are making us, but they're not. Again, going back to what my dad used to say, give credit. If it's there, again, just do things and put them out in the world. There's no way that if you're a creative person and you create stuff, people will copy it, people will rip it off. But if you're the one who's creating, you're creating it. It's just the end of it. I don't know any artist who died from hunger because somebody copied them.
And I think we've already said this in a few episodes in the past relating to what you're saying. I think all of us over here in this room constantly say that when you look at Lebanon, all of us have a very strong emotional bond to this country, regardless of how shit things can be going over here. And what saddens us the most, again, going back to what you're saying, is the potential that this country could have going forward, and if things were actually allocated, if resources were allocated in the right place. And yeah, it's sad to see.
I mean, look, I think that I know because we're in it. It feels like it's the end of the world, but what's happening in Lebanon right now is the best thing that happened to Lebanon so far, because I think it's removing the old shackles, the old systems. It's making people realize, I want to speak my mind. I want to say I'm dissatisfied, because we're a society where we're very like politically correct in a sense, like لا ما تزعل عمو ما
ماشي
تقول
الحال
له
كله ماشي الحال
كله ماشي الحال مسحب هالدقن it's okay who you're sucking it up يا اخي لا sorry what you did is wrong قل له انه هذا اذا صاحبك انت and you care about him
you tell him
قل له sorry why are you late يا اخي to the meeting
Yeah.
انه why are you not paying هيدا الشيء pushes the society forward in my personal opinion. Again, I think when people بيصير في check and balances. نحن أصحاب ما عم تجي على الوقت ما عم تدفع لي, or we're working together. إذا if I call you on it يا أخي خلص صار في discussion, we put it out there. مش بروح أنا بقول هذا عم أزعر مدري شو what is he doing كذا and I hate him and you start boiling from the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the problem, and I think that we've gotten to a point where it's like a pressure cooker. And now it didn't, like, the valve didn't open, just fucking exploded.
But we needed it because Ali Saloom says that we as Lebanese have cognitive dissonance in the sense that
Yes.
and for us, we live in a facade and we live in the Lebanon of beaches and nightclubs and parties and everything. But when you look under the surface, which is civil duties and just normal things that you should be giving your people, that's non-existent. So we needed to reach absolute rock bottom in the most unfortunate way. I'm not trying to condone it. To wake up and to realize, fuck, we cannot keep living like this.
صح.
Who gives a shit about our nightlife and everything if we can't even give people electricity, food, water?
أكيد.
So I think it was something that...
Look, the worst thing that I always say, the worst thing that you could do is accepting.
And you've been accepting for way too long.
Yeah, I mean, look, break something, oh, it's okay. Yani, the worst thing you can do is somebody who goes through something and you tell them, oh, it's good you didn't die. Like, really? I mean, I could die every minute of the day, and every time I'm sitting on this chair right now, it's great I'm not dying. So essentially, you don't want to accept, and you want to doubt. Doubt is your friend in life, because when you doubt, which is another thing we suffer from, and I want to bring it back to the entertainment, is that nobody doubts. No, I know how to do this. Oh, okay, that's great. And then it turns out to be shit. Like, you didn't doubt. Doubt is your best friend in life, because doubt makes you stay up at night, makes you think 2, 3, 4 times about the same thing, makes you analyze, makes you do research, makes you ask. Don't be afraid of doubt.
Yeah.
Don't be so sure about anything. Always doubt what you're thinking, always doubt what you're designing, always question it so you can elevate it and you can challenge it. The minute you're not doubtful, it means it's sealed and that's what it's gonna be. And people, like, I'm very excited about what we're building and what we're doing, and you know, the plan is to 5, 6, 7 years from now is build everything, and then maybe come back to Lebanon and just do like
welcome you with open arms.
I would love that. I mean, I just, you know, and I'll go back to the States every once in a while. I don't know, but
yeah.
Best of luck.
Well,
a lot of interesting projects.
It's really exciting.
And talking to you, I think it's rare now, but you kind of give us optimism for the future, especially after giving us your blessing for this podcast. And
I think
types
it's
of things we're trying to
fantastic.
do.
It's really cool.
If
Thank
you
you so
decide to
much,
come
man.
back, you have friends here.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
so much.
You have a place to
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
come in.
No, this is, you guys should push it on the podcast.
Thanks, man.
It's
Thank you
great.
so
It's
much.
done professionally, and it just takes time. The thing in the entertainment,
Just have to be patient.
yeah, everything in the entertainment takes time. It takes time
yeah.
because you need to build the trust with your audience,
I agree.
that you are the person who will deliver them those experiences over and over and over. Yeah. So
Thank you so much.
Thank
man.
you guys for having
What
me.
a pleasure. So much.
thanks a
Really.
lot. Yeah.